Good morning, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? If you haven't already found a seat, find one. Find your table or just sit next to someone who looks cozy. I'd like to direct your attention to the video.
Israel is an amazing place.
This is really a first world cutting edge nation.
Israel is the Jewish homeland where people can live a free and independent life.
We can't take it for granted that Israel will always be there. They're really strong, but they're only strong because they have the support of others around them.
When you have a young country, there are always unfulfilled needs.
JNF is really responsible for the existence of the state of Israel.
The strength of the Jewish nation will be settling the Negev.
Without the help of the JNF, this would still be a desert.
We see people come to live in an area that nobody lived before because it was neglected. And the Beersheba River Park is now green because of JNF of America.
It was desert, it was neglected part of Israel. Together with the JNF, we are going to bring to the Negev life.
Our children have no chance to play outside in a regular playground. The JNF, they built this place.
JNF contributes to future generations to learn about the history of the country.
If they lose the history, they will lose the future as well.
My first cousin, she was on the second plane that crashed. This memorial is very important to us. America means like a big brother to Israel.
We have to develop new water resources to survive.
There just isn't enough water for a growing population.
Without the help of the JNF, we will not be able to drink the water.
We wanted to create a future of hope for severely disabled people.
JNF raised money to build this wonderful place.
Mount Carmel is like a sanctuary for Israelis. What they used to see in Mount Carmel was now burned and black.
Since the fire ended, JNF has been clearing away the burnt brush.
In a few years, you will see here like paradise.
We're involved in water, we're creating parks, we're reforesting the land, we're working on science and technology.
When you donate to JNF, you're improving the quality of life for the people living in Israel.
If you have the dedication, you give the donation.
Make a difference.
Not tomorrow, now.
We must keep Israel strong. We must do more.
We can't stop.
It was nothing, only sand and sand. That's what we found here.
Welcome. And thank you, friends, for joining us today. My name is Judith Sidney. It is my honor to stand before over 600 people here at our third annual breakfast, the largest turnout ever. To our distinguished speaker, Uri Levine, we are thrilled to have you in Boston. Welcome. I'd like to acknowledge New England's Consul General Yehuda Yaakov and Deputy Consul General Ronit Nudelman-Pearl, and thank the New England-Israel Business Council for their partnership. To my fellow event chairs, Aviva Sapers, Isaac and Ilana Edry, and Jeffrey and Mary Wolf, please stand up and let's give them a big thank you. We are very sorry to share that Isaac and Ilana are not able to join us today due to a family emergency that ushered them back to Israel. Our prayers of healing are in our hearts for them. Thank you for our outstanding table captains, fellow board members, Sapphire Society members, and sponsors who've made this morning possible. Please indulge me for one more moment. Please hold your applause while I proudly acknowledge JNF World Chairman Council Todd Patkin, Chairman of the Board Jeffrey Davis, New England President Larry Cohen, I don't quite know where all of you are to acknowledge you and look for you, Boston President Michael Blank, Capital District President Robert Gans, past President Robert Cohen, past Mayor of the Central Arava and JNF Israel Emissary to the Southwest, Ezra Ravines, and our National Campaign Director, Sharon Friedman. It's now my honor to welcome Consul General of Israel to New England, Mr. Yehuda Yaakov, to the podium.
Shalom, good morning. Well, this crowd's woken up already. I guess you all slept at the hotel, right? It's a pleasure to be here at the annual breakfast, and when I think about the juxtaposition of the words JNF and innovation, I say, well, what a no-brainer. What could be more natural than that? Congratulations to you all for your support and for actually being on the ground floor of Startup Nation since 1901. Sharon, I got that right again, right? There you go, 1901. So the Startup Nation began in 1901, but we just didn't notice it. And it was a time when we were doing it ourselves, and we were doing it together with the JNF, not as a state, but as a people. If that hadn't happened at the turn of the 20th century, then people wouldn't be talking today about Israel as a startup nation as if they were synonymous. Because indeed, we started as a frontline nation, and way back in the turn of the century, the previous century, the frontline nation was dust, it was towers, it was walls. Who remembers that anymore? The evolution of that into Startup Nation today, the cyber nation, wouldn't have happened without people with vision, led by the JNF, and to this day supported in that direction. And we've talked a lot about, and you saw it on the screen before, about the water technologies. And all that has brought Israel, I think, to move from being part of the problem, particularly when it comes to resources, part of the problem, or a country with a problem, moving toward a country which is part of the solution. So if in the past we had to get our gas from other places, today we provide ourselves with our own gas. And we are going to be providing our neighbors, Jordan, the Palestinian Authority, and Egypt, with gas. And I heard this week from an Israeli economist passing through town, Eitan Shishinsky, Professor Shishinsky, anybody who knows him, that underneath those gas reserves is oil. And so we can't tell the old joke anymore about Moses turning the wrong way. Because apparently he turned the right way, just we didn't know it. And he didn't know it thousands of years ago. I think all these reasons are things that make us all proud, should be proud of your help in making sure that the JNF is moved in the past 100 years or so from turning Israel from a dusty place into a country that brings us ways today. Wow, what a jump. It is. Think about it. They didn't have ways when they had camels. But the challenge isn't over yet. And I want to throw another challenge out to you today. You may have noticed that after 3 decades, starting the end of June 2015, there will be direct flights from Logan to Ben Gurion Airport. Thank you very much. I only take about 1% of the credit for that. 99% of the work was done before I arrived in February, but the one thing I don't want to be is the Consul General remembered 4 years from now as being the one who brought the direct flights and then lost them. So we got to get the word out. And I'm sure those flights will be filled with people who are already hooked into the startup nation, the innovators based in New England going over to Israel, and the innovators based in Israel coming over to New England. But we'll have to do much more than that. So please get the word out to make sure that people know about this, from Rhode Island and south of here to the northern tip of Maine. It's very, very important. We want people to strengthen those ties between Israel and New England. This is a very, very good catalyst to get that done. So on that happy note, and I've learned with my time here to end on an optimistic note, thank you again for having me at this annual breakfast. I wish you a very, very successful event and successful endeavors as you go forward in strengthening the partnership between Israel and our friends everywhere. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Yaakov, just to let you know, I travel to Israel 2-3 times a year. I'll be on that plane. It's wonderful. My name is Michael Blank. I am president of Jewish National Fund here in Boston. I'd like to welcome a tremendous crowd this morning to our event. It is now my honor to introduce Uri Levine. Uri Levine, Waze co-founder and former president, is an Israeli entrepreneur, investor, and entrepreneur's mentor. After Google bought the social navigation app Waze for $1.1 billion last June, Uri and his co-founders launched FeeX, a startup that tackles the hidden fees that financial services dupe people into paying. His focus is on doing good, bringing value, and solving real problems for consumers. Presently, Uri serves as chairman and investor at FeeX, Zeek, Fairfly, NG, and is board member at Moveit and Rumor. Uri has over 20 years of extensive experience in marketing and business development in the wireless arena. Please join me in welcoming Uri Levine.
Good morning. I'm thrilled and excited to see so many people here. And you know, in general, I don't like to stand behind podium, and one of the key reasons. Okay, can you hear me now? Is that better? So I'm thrilled and excited to be here. There are so many people, and it's pretty amazing. And I just say that. In general, I don't like to stand behind a podium because, as Israeli, I speak with my hands, right? And you don't see my hands when I stand behind a podium, and so I'll try to. What I would like to share with you this morning is a passion for entrepreneurship, is a passion for change, and also the Waze story. And are there any entrepreneurs in the audience? Okay, so maybe some tips that will be important for you. So with that, you know, what I would like to speak a little bit about entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is about dreams, you know, about passion. It's about changing the world. It's about willing to sacrifice a lot of things, and when you go into this journey, then you figure out that you actually do sacrifice a lot of things, and then you know you would go for a long period of time without pay. You would spend so many hours a day in your venture or your dream that you would nearly forget everything else. And it's a roller coaster, right? There are ups and downs, and this is like could happen a few times a day, and it's always longer and harder than you think it is. So to a certain extent, being an entrepreneur and starting a startup, it's like falling in love. And you actually do, right? So you look at multiple ideas and concepts, and you eventually fall in love with one, or you go and date multiple girls, and eventually you fall in love with one. And then, you know, after you fall in love with the idea, you start to tell your friends about this is my new venture and this is what I'm going to do, and or you start to taking your girl out to meet your friends. And when they tell you that she's not for you, you actually disengage with your friends. And, you know, in that sense, I would say, if you don't love what you're doing, find something that you do love. And this is general in life, right? So if you don't like what you're doing, simply find something that you do love. Keep on dating and find the one that you do love. The first year of a startup, it's about multiple things. It's about probably the first decision that you need to make is whether or not you need funding. If you do, then this becomes the single most important objective of your venture. Because if you don't, it's like, you know, having a car without fuel, right? So funding is the fuel that allows you to go into this journey. If you need fuel, then you actually need to figure out where is the fuel station and how do I get there? What do you need to do in your startup, what are the milestones that you need to achieve, what are the assets that you need to create in order to be able to get funded. The other key factors are building a strong management team, and it's not I need to cover everything, but the things that I need to cover, if I need to have marketing on the first year, I need to have someone that can carry that load, that can go and execute on the marketing that will be successful. If I need engineering, then obviously I need engineering team and someone that leads the engineering team to the level that can execute. The DNA of the company is maybe the most interesting part, because when we start, we have a dream, right? We say we're going to change the world, right? We're going to help people to avoid traffic jams. So we have a mission. But mission is not the only thing that we are building on day one. The company is the other thing that we are building on day one. In the decision whether or not this place is going to be the place of our dream, is something that we decide on day one, and we actually build that on day one. So when we started Waze, we thought that the dream worthwhile. We thought that helping people fight traffic jams is a cause that's worth fighting for, and it's definitely worth it. But we also decided that we're going to build the best working place we ever had. And we had this dream coming from other startups that we have seen, and basically decided, okay, this is how we're going to build the company. And the result, and when you do that, you basically say, okay, I'm not going to give up on the people that I bring into the company. I'm only going to bring people that is actually fun to work with, because the journey is going to take so much time of you, and you're going to spend most of your hours of the day, or most of the hours that you are awake in that venture, in that startup. And if there are people that you don't like, it's a big problem. So when you run a company, you actually need to love the people that you have under your command. If you don't love them, definitely on the first year, get rid of them. There is a saying in Hebrew that says that one rotten apple will destroy the entire basket. And I learned that on first grade, and I came home and I told that to my parents, and my dad looked at me and he said, no. And I asked him, what do you mean no, right? And he said, look, if you're going to make an applesauce, then you're right. But if not, take the rotten apple out and throw it to the garbage, and the rest are okay. So if you're building your team and there is one that doesn't fit, that decision needs to be really, really fast. You don't need this person in here. He's actually creating more damage than value. Get rid of that person, even if it's unpleasant. So obviously the mission, you define the mission. This is why we started this startup. This is why. And in many cases, you want that mission to be strong enough that even if you fail, you would basically tell yourself, I'll go again into this journey because the mission is right. And then obviously it's all about execution, right? If you are unable to execute, then the dreams remain dreams. And if you want to make them reality, then you need to be able to execute, or you need someone else that will be able to execute. And the last one is about focus. And focus is not what we're doing. Focus is what we are not doing. These are the hard decisions. So it's very easy to start up to say, yes, I can do everything, right? But the reality is that we can't. We can only do the one thing that we say we're going to do. And in order to do that, we basically need to say no to everything else. So if you think of a journey, this is really the startup journey in general, if you are successful, right? Obviously, if you are not, then you don't have the curve going up on the right hand. And by the way, statistically, most of the startups fail. That's the reality. And a key factor in order to go and build a startup is that you are not afraid of failure. The passion for change is greater than the fear of failure. And the interesting part in this graph is actually the part that calls lack of traction. And this is always longer than you think it is, and this is like crossing a desert, right? So when you cross the desert, every day looks exactly the same, and you don't even pay attention to the fact that you're making progress. You don't see that. because there are always sand around you, right? And then when you go to sleep at night, you wake up in the morning, there's still sand and sand around you, and even you make baby steps, but you don't see that you're making progress. The reality is that you do. It's long. If your mission is right, if your team is right, then you probably will survive crossing the desert. If not, I doubt that. So entrepreneurship, the interesting part of that is that the difference between in practice and in theory is much larger in practice than it is in theory. It's really hard. And I've heard so many entrepreneurs telling me that if they would know that this is going to be that hard, they wouldn't go into this journey. And this is the time that I tell them, okay, is the world going to be a better place if you're successful? And if they tell me yes, then I say, okay, this is why you're doing that. Just an interesting point of view of how to judge ideas and concepts and features and anything. Ask yourself two questions. What is the size of the addressable market? So that will be one X on this matrix. And in some cases, this is very large. So maybe Waze addresses all the drivers on the planet, and that will be approximately 2 billion people. In some cases, that will be very, very small and still worthwhile. So what if I can make disabled people walk again? Right? There are few, but everyone is a world by itself. And the other dimension, which is the more interesting one, is the amount of value that you bring to a single user. And obviously, in the first example or in the second example, that will be tons of value. That will be indefinite value to anyone. And the amount of value could be measured by value or could be measured by the frequency of use. And obviously, on the upper right corner, we have the winners. We have the Facebooks and the Googles, and hopefully Waze sometime, and hopefully FX sometimes, and hopefully all of my startups. And on the lower left, there are the losers there, right? No one wants to be there, but it turns out that there are quite a few eventually ended up there. The niche player is basically companies that serve specific segments of the market, specific use case, specific users, and there are a lot of them. The problem is actually on the lower right, where it says dreams and nightmares. So you think it's a dream because you have such an addressable market, right? If every person on the planet will be using my service, then obviously that's going to be a dramatic change to the world. But the reality is that if you don't bring enough value, that's become a nightmare. Basically, no one is going to use that, even though that the addressable market is everyone. And therefore, the focus of a startup must be on the value that they bring. And this is the first year, right? The first year you actually go and figure out this is the problem that I'm solving, this is the users that actually have this problem, and this is the value that I'm going to bring to these users if I solve the problem to them. And if you don't bring enough value, then you'll die anyhow. To a certain extent, ask yourself very simple questions. If you are successful, who will be out of business? If you don't know to answer that, the idea is not big enough. And if you can answer that, and if there are big names out there, then it's a big idea. Then you should go and execute that. So one of the things that I'm doing, I'm mentoring at the IDC in Herzliya, the Zell Entrepreneurship Program. And 2 or 3 years ago, I was there at the panel, and one of the teams present, and their concept was a marketplace for non-refundable hotel reservations. So you make hotel reservations someplace, and you need to cancel the trip, and then you end up with paying $250 for the hotel because it's a non-refundable one. Yeah, and this company today called Rumor, and they are actually a marketplace for non-refundable hotel reservation, and I'm part of their board member. And the interesting part is that during the first time that they presented the idea, I said, look, I don't know, at worst case, they're going to kick me out of the program, and I don't care, but if I would be instead of you, I would be quitting school right now. And so when you have an idea that you realize that is significant, then you should simply go and execute that. So a startup is a journey, right? And in this journey, what you're really looking for is, here are the people that have this problem, right? So this is the focus. Here are the people that have this problem. And sometimes you would consider yourself as one of these people, because in many cases you start from your own experience, you run into a problem, and you basically say, no, this is totally unacceptable, and I'm going to solve that. But this is not enough. You actually need to understand that your own experience is not a sample of one. It is actually common to a lot of people. And once you have these two in place, then you can actually start building a solution for that. And the solution could be very complex, and the bigger the problem is, the more complex the solution will be, because really what you're trying to do is take all the complexity and make it very easy for the users. And so this is the journey of the startup, and in that sense, I would say fall in love with the problem that you are solving and not the solution. The solution might change, but as long as the problem exists, then there is still a good reason for you to be there and try to solve that. So let me take you through a Waze journey and how we started and how it ramped up. And I will start with the most interesting part of Waze. How does it work? So what you see here is the map of Waze on day one. We started with a blank page. And this is the magic, right? So the map itself was created by the drivers. And so as soon as the drivers start driving with the application, we collected the GPS from the device. And if we would present that in a visual way, that would be looking like that. And when we started to collect more and more users and more GPS data, we started to get something that looks like that. And if I will tell you that this is a circle, then it looks like a traffic circle, right? By the way, this is Kikar Amdina for those that know that. So this is central Tel Aviv area. And you can easily see that you can tell the difference between Main Street and other streets. You can tell the difference between nearly everything, right? And if people are not making left turn, then you know that no left turn is allowed. And if you will see a road that there are 100 people going into that direction and there is no one else coming the other direction, that will be one-way street. And if there are 100 people going into that direction and there are only 5 coming the other way, that turns out to be one-way street in Tel Aviv. And the reality is this is how we drive. Right? And the magic happens because people started to use that. So the magic of Waze is that it's a driver-generated maps or driver-generated live maps. Now, the system automatically took that and generated a road grid out of that, which was populated with names and points of interest and house numbers by the users through map editing tool. Is there anyone in this audience that ever used the map editing tool of Waze? Okay, so we have few, right? So these people actually helped pretty much everyone else to have a complete map. Now, at this phase, if we will have someone driving slow, then we know that they are driving slow, and we know that there is a traffic jam here. And as soon as we have many users, then we can actually start to see a complete map, a complete traffic map of the roadways, and we can route people around that in order to avoid traffic jams. So the whole wisdom of the crowd is being used by Waze, both automatically and manually, in order to create a better service, a service that allows the drivers to fight traffic jams by sharing the information that all of us have. So 2 things here. One, what we are seeing here is how the map is being created, a few places in Eastern Europe. It will zoom in, but you can see the date, beginning of 2010 there. It will zoom into the center city, and you will see how the map is actually being created, a snapshot day by day of the map. Took about 6 months so this is the center area, and the river was drawn by, as soon as we had this capability in the map editing tool to draw rivers and stuff like that. The interesting part is that this video was actually created by a user. And we didn't know about that until 2011, when someone approached me and say, look, your videos suck, right? And I am a video editor and I can do a much better job. And I said, what video are we speaking about? And then we found out. If you drive someplace that no one drove before, then your avatar changes into a roller steamer and you actually pave the road as you drive. Anyone here turns out to pave the new roads? So there is someone over there, and this is, for all of us that used to be kids and wanted to drive a roller steamer, that's an opportunity. So this is the magic, and the interesting part is that this is actually working everywhere because it started from a blank page, right? And so I remember that I was at Tel Aviv University, I think, and I was explaining that, and then someone asked me, are there users in Antarctica? And I said, I don't know. And I went into the database and find out that there are actually 27 users in Antarctica. And that was much more interesting than that, because I tried to figure out what exactly they're doing there, and so we approached them, and it turns out that the researchers over there are actually using Waze in order to go back and forth to the base station, because there is no magnetic north there, and if you think you're gonna track back your tracks, one snowstorm and there is nothing left, right? And so they were using Waze in order to go wherever, and in order to come back, they actually used Waze. So the journey started by Ehud, who is the CTO of Waze, and it started with a PDA. Before smartphones, there was an era that called PDA, and that era is probably Is there anyone in this room that actually still have a PDA? Okay, so this is what happened to PDAs, right? So it started in 2006, and Ehud was the first user, and what he was building is the initial version that allow people to create maps or drive or create the maps as you drive. And it was semi-manual, so at the end of the drive, you actually, the PDA, the application created a file. That file was emailed to Ehud, and Ehud manually combined all these files together and created the map. And later on, we figure out that this is actually a lot of work, and instead of doing that manually, we're gonna build a system, a server side, that collects all these files together and create automatic map out of that. And that was Ehud by himself. In 2007, we met. I met Ehud and Amir, and we discussed this concept, and we thought that, okay, creating maps is very interesting, but really the big problem of the people is that we're stuck in traffic jams, and I hate traffic jams. I hate waiting in lines. I didn't buy the iPhone 6 when there were lines. I was waiting until there are no lines, and so I hate waiting in lines. I hate that to the extent. Let me give you an example how much I hate that. In Israel, if someone mails you a package, then the postman will come to your house and leave you a note that there is a package for you waiting at the post office. And then you need to go to the post office, wait in line in order to retrieve your package. So I don't go to the post office. And so if you plan on sending me a package, simply forget that. I'm not going to get that, because I will never go and wait in line for that package. Now, obviously, this is not the common behavior of most of the people. They don't hate lines so much. They hate lines, but not that bad. So 2007, we teamed up. We started the concept. We started building the DNA of the company. We decided that this is going to be the best working place we ever had. And we went fundraising, and then people told us no, and no, and no, and no, and a lot of no's. And definitely very discouraging to hear so many no's. And then eventually, we get better with the product and with the demo and with the ability to tell the story. And we started to hear yes and yes and yes. Interesting story about the first yes that we got. So we met one of the VCs in Israel, first meeting and second meeting, and then they invited us to all partners meetings. And before we went there, we actually figured out where does each one of the partners is living, and we made sure that their house is on the map. And when we got to this meeting, all of a sudden we explain how does it work, and it's created by the users, and one of the partners is asking, so what you're saying is that it's that possible that my house is on the map? And I say, tell me where you live and we'll see, right? And so he gave us the address, and we are putting that in the map, in the search, and everyone is looking at the map, and I'm looking in his eyes, and I saw that moment that he basically going to say yes. So an important part, right? If you're approaching investors, remember that they are users too. And if they don't think that they would use that, it's very unlikely that they will eventually invest. We were still running on a PDA, but the vision was that we're going to actually do that on a mobile phone, on a smartphone, and therefore we will have real-time traffic so we can actually help people to avoid traffic jams. These are the original slides, right? So when I went fundraising in 2007, this is what I've presented. I basically say that we are building navigation, which is mapping and traffic data, 10 times faster than anyone else, up-to-date accuracy, and a tenth of the cost. So the promise of Waze was that we are simply much more efficient in map making and traffic making. And the magic is about automatic user-generated content. Right? So the fact that when you drive, we know where you are and how fast you are driving, and because of that, we can generate the value for the rest of the drivers is the magic of Waze. We thought at the time that we're going to sell maps, right? Maps were extremely expensive, and we thought that the business model will be that we will be competing in map making and we will be selling maps. Over time, we figure out that the maps that we have are actually the biggest assets that we have. And instead of selling those, what we're going to do is leverage on those and provide better and better service to the users. 2008, eventually we started the company officially in March 2008, and we got funded. And the company at the time called Link Map, but we thought that this is going to be Link You Map, so we wanted to say that we are going to link people to the map. It turns out that most of the people don't want to be linked to the map, but and by the way, my daughter came up with this name, but later on we figured out that Waze is a much more appealing name. And the reason that Waze is spelled that way and not the way that it should have been is that the domain cost $500,000, which we didn't have. Yeah, and so we raised a lot of money at the beginning, which turns out to be, it's interesting. On one day I will say that it was a good decision, and the other day I will say that was a poor decision. The reality is that you don't know. You make the decisions and you don't know. The decision that you are making is the right one because you don't have an opportunity to examine any other decision. And it turns out that I hate to be a CEO. You need to deal with so many issues that I didn't want to deal. I want to remain with the dream and the passion and the change and the ideation and the things that I like and not the things that I dislike. And as CEO, there are so many things that you need to deal with and you don't like. And so I figure out that I hate that. 2009, we actually launched the service in Israel at the beginning of 2009. So before that, there was no Waze. And we launched later on here in the US, and we released the Waze everywhere and make that a global play at the end of 2009. And we brought Noam as the CEO, which was, I think, one of the most successful decisions that I've made with Waze. And then Google started their free turn-by-turn navigation. Up until that moment, Waze was the only free turn-by-turn navigation. And that was a scary moment for us. That was, and definitely for our investors that basically thought that we're gonna die. And in 2010, we actually demonstrated that we are pretty close of dying because it was simply not good enough. So it was good enough in Israel, it was magic in Israel, and it turns out to be pretty successful in few places in Latin America, like Colombia and Venezuela and Ecuador and Costa Rica and so forth. But it was not good enough here in the US and not in Western Europe either. So people actually they subscribe to the vision, right? So we, the drivers, are going to share where traffic information is, where traffic jams are, and because of that, all the drivers are going to be, we will help the rest of the drivers to avoid traffic jams. And the story was very easy, and a lot of people downloaded the application and tried that, and it was not good enough, right? So sometimes not good enough means that in order to get from here to the end of the block, you would actually need to go around 5 blocks and come back. So the map was not good enough, and the application couldn't figure that out, and people tried and churned. And we invested a lot of effort in fixing that. So just remember this graph. The lack of traction turns out to be long and hard, and even more than you think. And in particular, when towards the end of 2010, we actually needed to raise funds, and that was a nightmare. That was very, very hard. The reality is that we focus on not good enough for the entire year. We figure out, okay, we're going to learn what is not good enough and what is the perception of not good enough from getting that directly from the users, and we're going to get that directly from the system by having the right metrics in place. And each and every iteration was about, let's fix that. The problem is that you collect the data and you understand where the problems are, and you go and fix that, and you release a new version, and it's still not good enough. And you're pretty sure for each one of these versions that this is it, right? You're going to solve all the issues that you've seen. And then it's not good enough. And so through multiple iterations, through belief that this is the right thing for us to do, we went through this desert. And eventually it turns out that this is good enough. And so 2010 was still the nightmare year. 2011, we were able to fix the funnel of the users. We were able to actually bring the people to the level that it's good enough for them. And it was the breakthrough year, right? So we've seen that started in LA, and then in the Bay Area, and then in Boston area, and then in few other metropolitan area, one by one, that all of a sudden we have reached or we have crossed the level of good enough. And we ended the year with 10 million users. And this is where we kind of figure out that, okay, this is it. We actually got that right. And we got more funded by Kleiner Perkins and Horizons. And, Horizons is the Li Ka-shing Foundation. And he's a Chinese guy from Hong Kong, and turns out to be a very, very big Zionist, even though that he's not even a Jew. And so he, after the exit, I think that they have made about $130 million out of the exit, and he took that entire amount of money and made a donation to the Technion. And so, he is a big Zionist, even though that he is a 86 years old Chinese guy. 2012, this is where the magic happened. This is where we have seen that in many countries, one after the other, Waze is becoming the most successful driving application. And essentially, we were growing faster than the entire industry together. So if we go back to to the questions, who would be out of business if we are successful? This is about the year that we have started to see companies going out of business because we are successful. And anyone that was dealing with navigation before Waze, and anyone that was in the map making or traffic making space was at a very, very high risk because we disrupt the way that they are doing business. And that was too complex for them to deal with. In 2013, we were growing at approximately 4 million users every month. In the summertime, June 2013, Google actually acquired Waze. Waze is still Waze, right? So they haven't changed the name. They haven't changed the application. The offices are still in Israel, in Ra'anana. And that was a key factor for us, that we still have a dream that is yet to be fulfilled, and we want to, we have a mission. We want to help drivers to avoid traffic jam. Now, for me, that was an awesome opportunity to actually start a new startup, and I've started FeeX. FeeX is Robinhood of fees, and throughout the years, I figure out that I don't know how much fees I'm paying. And that was pretty embarrassing because I think I should have known. And then I started to speak with some friends, and I figured out that none of them is knowing that. And I went and researched the market a bit. Turns out that this is the biggest secret in the world. $600 billion of fees in the US every year. $600 billion. This is more than the entire entertainment industry, right? This is more than the entire construction industry. It's 4% of the GDP, and most of the people don't even know that they're paying those. And we started FeeX around that time in order to actually address that exact issue. So let me go into a few tips for startups, but when you try to look at them, they actually apply to any of the businesses that you're doing. So a startup is a quest, right? It's a journey. We are looking for three things. We are looking for users that have a problem, and we can solve that, right? As soon as we find these two, we can solve the problem, then we are on the right path. As soon as we find the solution, then it's all about replicating it, right? So same users, bigger solutions, different users, same solution. It's about replication. And the tips that I would like you to take home with, and these are important, is figure out who your users are and what's their problem. And people tend to assume here, or they think that they would be sitting in a meeting room and decide, okay, these are the users and this is the problem, and it's not. You need to go out and meet the users. You need to see them in your own eyes and to get their perception of the problem. Because if you don't, you are building something that, you're building a solution for a problem that does not exist. You make your mistakes fast, and this is definitely on consumer space, right? So if you wait, if you want it to be perfect, then it's too long, right? You should be embarrassed with the product that you launch. You should look at it and you say, what the hell is that, right? And you should be embarrassed when you show that to your friends or family. And only then you can actually learn faster. So the reason to make your mistakes faster is in order to learn faster. And then all of a sudden you build a cadence of mistakes that you make mistakes, fix them, make mistakes, fix them, and all of a sudden you become faster than anyone in the industry. The DNA and the mission that you are building, they are going to define your journey, whether or not the journey is enjoyable and successful, or you're going to suffer throughout the journey. And obviously you will have a lot of suffering throughout the journey because it's hard. But if you're going to suffer because you hate the place that you're working, or the mission is not right, it doesn't worth to change the world this way, then unlikely that you will be successful. Fall in love with the problem and not the solution. I say that already a few times. When you figure out your solution doesn't work, if the problem is not right, then you'll give up. If the problem is right, you'll find a different way to solve that. And focus is not about what we are doing, it's about what we are not doing. The hard decisions is to say no. It's very easy to say yes. It's hard to execute, but it's very easy to say yes. Saying no is hard. So a few words about myself, and as you know, as mentioned earlier, I'm an entrepreneur and I mentor for entrepreneurs, and I do only consumers, right? So you know, at the end of the day, when there is someone approach me and say thank you for Waze because you helped me to avoid traffic jams or avoid speeding tickets or whatever it is, then I go home happy because I know that I helped someone. And only those that are doing good for consumers. And you know, doing good is very simple. I either going to save you money or save you time. Otherwise, if I'm going to waste your time or going to waste your money, then it's not about doing good. And in general, in 3 areas, in drivers and transportation. So like Waze, I actually have another application called Move It, and it's doing the same thing, but for public transportation. So if you are going someplace and you think that you're going to use public transportation, Move It is going to answer the same question. Which route should I take right now? How do I get right now from wherever I am to wherever I need to go? Money thrown to the garbage, I like this category a lot. You know, and it's not money left on the table. Money thrown to the garbage means that if you're going to take that out of the garbage, no one cares. And rumor is one example. So, you know, you have a marketplace for non-refundable hotel reservation. There is also another one called Zik, which is a marketplace for store credit. Now, here in the US, it's not common, right? You buy something that you don't like, you return that to the store, and you get your money back. Everywhere else in the world, you actually get a store credit that you can only use within that store or within that chain. And people hate that, right? Because they kind of force you to come back to the store and you know, and stand in the line again in order to. And it's a marketplace. You can simply sell those. And so turns out that 30% of those store credits are actually thrown to the garbage. And this is approximately $100 billion globally that's thrown to the garbage every year because you know, you go to the store and the store credit is on a magnet on the refrigerator, or you know, it's being faded away, or it's in the graveyard of store credits, which also call a purse. And so this is money thrown to the garbage. And the other category is a lot of money left on the table. So FX is definitely there. You know, NG deals with us being helpless when we go to the mechanic, right? So if I'll go to the mechanic and they will tell me that I need to replace my carburetor, I'll say, okay, go ahead and replace the carburetor right now. The reality is that 20 years they don't make cars with carburetors, but we wouldn't know. That reminds me of a story. You know, a son is calling his dad and saying, look, Dad, I think that there's water in the carburetor. And his dad is saying, what do you mean water in the carburetor? He said, I think there are water in the carburetor. Do you even know what a carburetor is? And he said, no. And so why do you think there are water in the carburetor? Well, because the car fell into the neighborhood's swimming pool. So what Angie does is essentially connects to your car computer, figure out what's wrong with your car, and actually then ask for quotations from multiple mechanics. And all of a sudden, we transfer the knowledge from very few to pretty much everyone. So we create sharing of knowledge. And so, yeah, I think that Rami is standing here and looking at the clock and trying to tell me that my time is up. So thank you very much.
Wow. It was amazing. Boker Tov, Shalom. I'm Rami Khazan, the Israeli emissary to JNF New England.
I'm Sarah Hafez, Director for JNF New England.
Innovation, entrepreneurship, and determination shape better future for all of us. By sharing experiences like ways and knowledge, we create a better world in which to live, both today and especially for the future generations.
We're humbled but excited to stand before you today here in Boston, a hub of education, innovation, which are a major part of our culture and life.
I thought the Red Sox is the major part. We are here today to celebrate. We celebrate JNF and its accomplishments over the past 114 years.
Innovation has been a cornerstone of JNF since it was founded.
JNF has built over 240 water reservoirs, which provide more than 1.5 million Israelis fresh drinking water each year.
We are protecting the environment, supporting renewable energies, and turning the landscape of Israel breathtakingly green.
We love to see smiling and happy children at Sderot Playground, safe and secure from missiles and rockets.
We're revitalizing the north and the south of Israel by attracting hundreds of thousands of new residents to build their lives there, strengthening Israel in the process, the new generation of pioneers.
We are proud to bring thousands of high school students and college students to Israel every year as part of the Alexander Mas High School and alternative spring break programs.
JNF strengthens Israel's economy and creates thousands of jobs, especially in tourism, by supporting heritage preservation sites across the depth and the breadth of the country.
As a young startup, JNF initiatives help to change the face of Israeli society. We continue to bring quality of life to all Israelis.
No other organization makes a bigger difference.
Thank you. Toda Rabba to all of you for being part of JNF's family. Your generosity allows us to do a meaningful work and brings us one step closer to our $10 billion campaign.
Our vision cannot be accomplished without you. You've all received a pledge card. Please find a place in your heart and make a meaningful donation today and join our special journey.
We will pause our program for 1 minute and resume after you have handed the complete card to your table captains. Please.
Thank you for being a valued member of Jewish National Fund's family and for making us your voice in Israel.
And we now welcome our friend Jeffrey Davis, Chairman of the Board and National VP, to the podium for closing remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And yes, I am Jeffrey Davis. I am chairman of the board. I want to say hello to all my entrepreneurial friends in the audience and my JNF family for over 17 years. Very proud to be here today. The JNF for me has been an act of love. Yesterday, for those who were around, I was fortunate, I was listening to one of our members, Mike Letterman, who talked about all the projects that we do. You saw it this morning on the video. We have touched every aspect of Israel. We have projects on every part of the land from north to south. You can't go anywhere in Israel and not see our signs. For 114 years, the JNF started with the vision of one person with a vision and a dream. Today, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, and entrepreneurs just like us have supported and decided to support that vision and to become part of that JNF family. We are a family. Everyone in the JNF knows that. Today, supporting that vision is more important than ever. All you have to do is go online or turn on the news around the world. Every one of us knows that. You cannot hide from that. This is a defining moment in time. We're lucky to be here. That's the way I like to think of it. We should be part of that defining moment. You noticed you were asked to do your donations this morning on the cards. I'd ask you to take them back, but I don't know if you can do that for one more minute. After this meeting, I'm going to have another meeting with Entrepreneurs for Israel, a national organization of entrepreneurs and professionals that support the JNF and what we're doing and support entrepreneurial endeavors like you are sitting in this morning. I ask you to think about joining Entrepreneurs for Israel as well. Become part of an exciting, dynamic group of entrepreneurs. Put your name down. We'll follow up with you. A lot of us are meeting today. If you're interested in joining us, be part of that exciting group. There will be more events just like this morning, and a lot of things that you can take part of. Be part of that defining moment. I ask you to do that. Be part of our family. Be part of the love that we've continued for 114 years in creating a nation. Thank you very much, and again, thank you for coming.